Good morning and good day to everyone. Because no matter where you are, this message is for you. Today I speak not just to an audience but to a planet. The world, our shared home, is in a deep sleep. Not a sleep of rest, but a sleep of ignorance, distraction, and disconnection. It is time. Time to rise, time to awaken, time to shake off the numbness and remember who we truly are. We live in a world where being busy is mistaken for being purposeful, and constant stimulation is confused with true awareness. People are bombarded every second with notifications, entertainment, advertisements, and trends, all of which keep the mind spinning but never still enough to reflect. This overload of information creates a fog of distraction that clouds our understanding of what truly matters. We are so caught up in digital routines that we forget to notice the reality unfolding around us. The more we consume noise, the less we hear our own inner voice. And without that voice guiding us, we drift, asleep to our purpose, our potential, and our place in the bigger picture. This connection is not only external, it is deeply internal. In case a constant race to keep up, losing, dupli, interprete, and material. We try to appear successful, relevant, and happy on the outside, while inside we are exhausted and disconnected from our true selves. That's the silent sleep of the modern world. The illusion of movement without real awakening, the appearance of connection without emotional or spiritual. Even our relationships have been numbed by this cultural sleep. We live in an age of virtual friends and filtered realities. Real conversations are often replaced with emojis. Presence has been replaced by performance. We text instead of talk, scroll instead of feel, and post instead of engage. And in this sea of digital illusion, we forget the sacredness of genuine connection. Families sit under the same roof, yet are miles apart mentally and emotionally. Communities exist side by side, but neighbors barely know each other. This disconnection has left us not only lonely, but vulnerable to manipulation and division. Distraction is the greatest tool of suppression. When people are asleep, they do not question, they do not resist, they do not rise, they simply conform, follow, and survive, rather than thrive. Governments, corporations, and media thrive on this condition. They feed it, reinforce it, and design systems to keep people pacified. A distracted mind is easier to influence. A disconnected soul is easier to control. By keeping the masses asleep through entertainment, division, and consumerism, the status quo remains untouched and transformation becomes a distant dream. But make no mistake, this sleep is not peaceful. It is not healing. It is not neutral. It is dangerous. When people are distracted and disconnected, injustice goes unnoticed. When society is numb, voices of the oppressed are drowned out. When individuals are too overwhelmed to care, the planet suffers silently. This unconscious state has allowed wars to go unchallenged, corruption to thrive, and inequality to grow like a virus. It is not just a personal issue, it is a collective crisis. The sleep of one person affects the community, and the sleep of a generation shapes the course of history. This mass spiritual slumber isn't irreversible, but it is persistent. It begins subtly, a little apathy here, a little avoidance there, until it becomes a lifestyle. It tells us that staying uninvolved is safer, that focusing on our own lives is enough, and that changing the world is someone else's job. But deep inside every person lies a spark that cannot be completely extinguished, a knowing, a whisper, a call to wake up. The problem is not that the world is incapable of awakening. The problem is that the alarm is ringing and too many are choosing to hit snooze. Awareness is not just a concept. It is a powerful force. It is the beginning of all transformation, both personal and collective. Before anything in the world can be changed, it must first be seen for what it truly is. Yet so many people live unaware of their habits, their thoughts, their surroundings, and their role in the larger human story. They function on autopilot, performing tasks and living routines that were inherited, not chosen. Awareness demands we pause and observe, that we question and reflect, and that we start noticing the unconscious patterns that keep us stuck. Without awareness, we are slaves to momentum. With it, we become authors of intention. Becoming aware means lifting the veil not just on the outside world, but also on our inner world. We must examine our beliefs, our biases, and our conditioning. We must ask ourselves, why do I think this way? Why do I respond in this manner? Where did I learn to see the world like this? These questions are uncomfortable but necessary. They illuminate the invisible forces shaping our actions. And when we see them clearly, we gain the power to change them. No revolution ever began with denial. Every meaningful transformation starts with the courage to face the truth, however painful or humbling it may be. In a world that constantly tries to numb us, awareness becomes a radical act. It means noticing the inequality in the systems we participate in. It means recognizing the suffering behind our conveniences, the child labor behind our clothes, the environmental cost of our consumption, the exploitation buried in our technologies. Awareness, because only when we allow ourselves to see the full picture can we begin to respond in ways that matter. Ignorance may feel easier, but it is not innocent. It allows harm to persist. Awareness, on the other hand, creates the foundation for conscious choices. Once we become aware, we start to realize that our actions are not isolated. They ripple outward, impacting others in ways we may never fully see. What we buy, how we speak, what we support, where we invest our time, all of these choices carry weight. Awareness teaches us that we are not small, that we are not powerless, that we do not exist in a vacuum. It reminds us that we are part of a larger ecosystem of life, and that with awareness comes responsibility. Responsibility not to be perfect, but to be intentional, to live in a way that aligns with our values rather than contradicts them. Awareness also connects us. When we are awake to our own struggles, we become more compassionate toward others. When we see our own fears, we stop judging those who act from theirs. When we recognize our own wounds, we stop expecting the world to be flawless. It reveals that beneath our labels, we are all human, trying to be seen, heard, and understood. And in that understanding, the seeds of unity are planted. Ultimately, awareness is the first light before dawn. It may not change everything instantly, but it begins the process. It is the ignition point. Once awakened, the soul cannot go back to sleep. Once a person sees clearly, the blindness of before becomes unbearable. This is why awareness is so powerful, because it gives birth to vision, and vision leads to action. When people awaken to what's wrong and to what's possible, they begin to take steps, however small, toward building a new world. The more we cultivate awareness, the more we become the change makers. In today's world, we are more connected than ever before. We can share thoughts, broadcast our lives, and consume content at lightning speed. Social media platforms have given us the illusion of community, of closeness, and of being in. But beneath this shiny surface lies a deeper truth, that while digital technology connects us virtually, it often disconnects us emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. This disconnection is subtle at first, but over time it grows like a silent void that separates us not only from others, but from ourselves. We scroll endlessly, constantly stimulated, yet emotionally undernourished. Likes, shares, and views have become the new currency of validation, while real human connection is often replaced by curated online personas. People post smiles while hiding sorrow. They celebrate milestones in public while suffering in silence in private. We have created digital identities that are polished, filtered, and performative, but really authentic. This disconnect between what we show and what we feel erodes our emotional well-being. It becomes harder to be vulnerable, to be seen in our raw truth, and to feel genuinely understood. We are surrounded by connection, yet plagued by loneliness. The addiction to screens has reprogrammed our attention spans and emotional responses. We have grown accustomed to instant gratification, short-form content, and reactive behavior. Conversations that once required patience, presence, and nuance are now reduced to sound bites, emojis, and rapid replies. We are losing the art of deep listening, of sitting with silence, of observing body language, and of empathizing through tone. Human interaction is more than words. It is energy, it is presence, it is the unspoken bond between souls. But when the majority of our interactions are virtual, that bond begins to fray. Ironically, in a world designed to keep us constantly connected, people feel more isolated than ever. Mental health issues such as anxiety, depression, and social withdrawal are on the rise. Children growing up in the digital age often struggle to form strong emotional intelligence or meaningful offline relationships. Adults find it difficult to unplug, fearing irrelevance or disconnection if they do. We have become so intertwined with our devices that we panic when separated from them. And yet, we rarely pause to ask, are these connections nourishing us or are they draining us? Moreover, technology has created echo chambers that disconnect us from differing perspectives. Algorithms feed us content that reinforces our existing beliefs, making us less likely to empathize with or even understand people who think differently. This digital isolation fuels division, conflict, and misunderstanding. Rather than engaging in meaningful dialogue, we react, judge, and label. We lose the ability to meet others with curiosity and compassion. The screen becomes a shield that protects us from discomfort, but it also keeps us from growing. In avoiding the messiness of real, face-to-face interaction, we lose the richness of human experience. Technology itself is not the enemy, it is a tool. It has the potential to unite, educate, inspire, and mobilize like never before. But when used unconsciously, it becomes a barrier rather than a bridge. It replaces presence with performance, intimacy with interaction, and meaning with metrics. The challenge is not to reject technology, but to reclaim our humanity within it. We must remember that behind every screen is a soul. Behind every post is a person. And behind every message is a moment of choice. To truly connect or to simply communicate. Waking up is not a gentle or easy process. It is often painful, messy, and deeply uncomfortable. Awakening means breaking free from the illusions we've been taught to accept, the lies we've chosen to believe, and the comfort zones that have kept us numb. It means peeling back layers of denial, confronting and confronting truths, and admitting that what we thought was normal may actually be harmful. Discomfort is not a side effect of awakening. It is the very evidence that awakening is happening. Growth demands friction, and only those willing to sit in that discomfort can begin to transform not just themselves, but the world around them. Courage is the inner force that allows us to face this discomfort without turning away. It is not the absence of fear, but the decision to act despite it. Awakening requires the bravery to stand alone, to speak up when it's easier to stay silent, to question traditions that have gone unquestioned for generations. It means being willing to lose approval, to be misunderstood, to be judged or even attacked for daring to see and say what others refuse to acknowledge. The path of awakening is not for the faint of heart. It demands resilience, conviction, and the strength to keep going when everything around you says, stop. Those people avoid awakening not because they're incapable of it, but because they're afraid of what it might cost. It might cost them relationships, social comfort, stability, or even identity. But what's more dangerous? The cost of truth or the cost of living a lie? The discomfort of change or the decay of stagnation? Awakening might shake the foundations of everything we've known, but it also gives us the tools to rebuild with purpose and integrity. We must be willing to let the old fall apart so something better can emerge. That process is painful, but it is also sacred. Discomfort is the teacher and courage is the student willing to learn. They walk hand in hand through the darkness, guided by the belief that truth is worth the struggle. When we embrace discomfort instead of resisting it, we stop fearing growth. We begin to understand that pain is not punishment, it's a signal, a catalyst, an invitation to evolve. It shows us where we are stuck, where we are hiding, and where we are being called to rise. True awakening comes from leaning into that pain, not escaping it. It comes from asking the hard questions and listening to the answers, no matter how unsettling they may be. In a world that encourages comfort, awakening is a rebellious act. We are sold convenience, luxury, and ease at every turn. from fast food to fast entertainment, from superficial positivity to toxic avoidance. Everything around us says, don't think too hard, don't feel too deeply, just keep going. But awakening disrupts that narrative. It demands that we slow down, look around, and ask, is this really the life I want? Is this really the world we deserve? Those questions are uncomfortable, but they are also necessary. Because without them, we sleepwalk through existence, never truly living. Courage also means taking responsibility. Courage also means taking responsibility for our thoughts, our actions, and the mortal courage, the liberating the you may have just run. But this can be, I am not an almighty, I am not our mother. We have courage. It frees us from the chains of shame and empowers us to become part of the solution. True awakening doesn't happen in comfort zones. It happens in the fire. And only those willing to walk through it can carry the light to others. Too often, people underestimate their own significance in the grand scheme of things. They look at global problems, poverty, war, climate change, inequality, and assume that change is only possible through massive institutions or global leaders. This is the great lie that has kept the masses silent. The belief that one person cannot make a difference. But history tells a different story. Every great movement began with a single voice, a single idea, a single act of courage. The truth is, each individual has immense power, more than they often realize. Change doesn't start with anyone. It starts with someone. There's no doubt of it. The truths have to be, your daily choices carry weight, even if they seem small in the moment. What you buy, how you speak, who you support, where you spend your time, these decisions send ripples into the world. The way you treat a stranger, the conversations you choose to have, the principles you live by, these are all subtle but powerful forces. You don't need a stage or a spotlight to make an impact. Some of the most transformative changes happen quietly, in classrooms, in homes, in neighborhood. When one person chooses awareness, kindness, or truth over fear, they create a template for others to do the same. Influence begins with intention. In today's interconnected world, individual actions are amplified like never before. One video, one post, one act of resistance can inspire millions. With a smartphone and a message, ordinary people have become global voices for justice, peace, and reform. You don't need permission to make a difference. You don't need a title to lead. Leadership is not about power or popularity. When you dare to live in alignment with your values, You create a silent invitation for others to rise. Courage is contagious, and once it's seen, it cannot be unseen. Still, many remain paralyzed by the fear of not doing enough. They think, what difference will my small effort make? But real change is a mosaic of many small actions. A single drop may seem meaningless on its own, but enough drops can carve canyons and create floods. A single act of defiance can break centuries of silence. A single moment of compassion can heal years of pain. We must stop measuring impact only in terms of size or visibility. The world doesn't need everyone to do everything. It needs everyone to do something. And that something begins with the breath plus the food. It's my birth. It's my birth. It's It's a belief. Even failure can be a form of influence. When someone tries and stumbles, they model the courage to act. When someone speaks up and is rejected, they inspire others to be brave. Influence is not about being perfect. It's about being real. It's about showing others what is possible when you stop waiting for permission. The most powerful revolutions in history didn't come from people who had it all figured out. They came from those who cared enough to try, even when the odds were against them. The moment you realize your voice matters is the moment the world begins to change. Every individual is a seed of potential, carrying within them the ability to awaken others. The energy you give to the world is never wasted, whether through art, conversation, activism, teaching, parenting, or simple kindness. You are always leaving a mark. You are influencing the people around you, even when you don't realize it. The question is not whether you have influence. The question is what kind of influence you are creating. When you live with purpose, when you act with conviction, when you lead with your heart, you become a catalyst for transformation. One soul at a time. This is how global change begins. The signs are everywhere, in the smoke-killed skies, in the melting glaciers, in the oceans that rise and the forests that fall. But despite the overwhelming evidence of environmental degradation, industrial pollution, Yet far too many remains largely indifferent. Yet far too many remain asleep to the urgency of her voice. The pain, however, is not only ecological. Humanity itself is in distress. We live in a world where inequality has become normalized, where millions sleep without food while others waste in abundance. Injustice has become embedded in systems, institutions, and policies that are rarely questioned, from racism and poverty to war and exploitation. The human race continues to suffer, and this suffering is not just distant or abstract. It is happening in our cities, on our streets, in our schools and homes. People are crying out through protest, through silence, through despair, and still so many look away. We must ask ourselves why suffering has become something we scroll past instead of stand up against. What makes this moment in history so critical is that we are running out of time. Economists austere datability of time. Climate scientists warn from nature disconnection. They tell you, they understand. They understand. They know so distinct discrepancy, disconnection from purpose and meaning. And unless we respond, not just with words, but with action, we risk passing a broken world to the next generation. Nevertheless, the time for passive concern has passed. The time for symbolic gestures has expired. What we need now is sustained, courageous action on every level, from personal to global. Action looks different for everyone. For some, it may mean protesting, organizing, and challenging unjust laws. For others, it may mean transforming how they consume, how they live, and how they lead. But no one is exempt. No one can afford to stand aside. If you live on this planet, if you benefit from its resources, then you are part of the story. And that story is reaching a turning point. The question is not whether we should act. The question is how much longer we can afford not to. This is not about doom or despair. It is about awakening to the reality that we are needed. Every person has a role to play, a voice to offer, a contribution to make. The cries of the world are not a burden. They are a call to wake up, to stand up, to rise up. They are a reminder that compassion must become more than a feeling. It must become a force. Change will not come from governments alone or billionaires alone. It will come when everyday people begin to realize that action is not a choice, but a responsibility. The suffering of others, the cry of the earth, these are not things to pity, but signals to respond to. We are living in a moment that future generations will study. They will look back and ask, what did they do when the earth was burning? What did they say when injustice roared? How did they respond when the world cried out for help? The answers to those questions are being written now, not by the powerful few, but by the conscious many. The planet is not asking for perfection. People in pain are not demanding miracles. They are asking for presence, for participation, for purpose-cueing lives. They are asking us not just to care, but to act. In every era of human history, change has begun when someone had the courage to sound the alarm, to challenge what others accepted, to question what others feared, and to act when others remained still. Today, that responsibility falls on each of us. We are not here to simply observe the world. We are here to shape it. When we open our eyes to the truth, when we awaken to the suffering, the injustice, the apathy, we must not remain silent. We must become the alarm that stirs others from their sleep. This awakening isn't about shouting louder. It's about living louder. It's about embodying values so clearly that others begin to question their own slumber. Being the alarm doesn't require perfection or all the answers. It begins with authenticity. When you choose to live consciously, when your actions reflect your awareness, people notice. They begin to ask why you speak up, why you refuse to conform, why you walk a different path. And in that questioning, their own awakening begins. This is how change spreads. One conversation, one act of kindness, one example of courage at a time. Your life becomes a message. No a lecture, but a living proof that another way is possible. You are not forcing others to awaken. You are simply refusing to sleep. However, being the alarm often comes with resistance. People don't always want to be woken up. Truth can be uncomfortable. It can disrupt beliefs, lifestyles, and illusions that people have depended on for years. You may be met with ridicule, denial, or anger, but that doesn't mean your alarm is in vain. It means it's working. No one reacts to silence. They react when something shifts, when something challenges the norm. And in those moments, even if they don't admit it, something inside them stirs. So do not be discouraged by opposition. Let it remind you that your presence is powerful enough to shake foundations. The greatest alarm you can sound is your consistency. It's easy to speak once and disappear, to act boldly one day and fade the next. But true influence comes through steady, unwavering commitment to your principles. When people see that you don't compromise your integrity, that you keep showing up for justice, compassion, and truth, they begin to listen, even if silently. Your consistency tells the world that this awakening isn't a trend, that you're not just awake, you're alive. And you intend to stay that way. That presence, that persistence becomes a force greater than any single speech or protest. Being the alarm also means helping others find their voice. Everyone has a message, a passion, a pain they've buried. But many stay silent out of fear. Fear of rejection, of failure, of not being good enough. Your courage to speak can give them permission to do the same. Your vulnerability can create space for theirs. You don't wake the world by standing above it. You wake it by standing with it. By reminding people of their worth, their power, and their ability to rise. Awakening is not a solo act. It is a chain reaction. And the moment you wake up, your light can ignite the light. Ultimately, To be the alarm is to accept that you have a role in the story of humanity. You are not just a spectator in this moment of history. You are a participant, a voice, a force, a spark. The world is waiting for people who are brave enough to disturb the silence, who are willing to challenge comfort with conscience. Your actions, your voice, your presence, they matter more than you know. Every time you choose truth over ease, action over apathy, compassion over indifference, you are ringing the bell that tells the world it's time to wake up. And once enough people hear it, the world will never sleep the same again. So now the question is no longer, can we wake the world? The question is, will we? Will we rise from indifference and dare to care deeply? Will we challenge what's broken and build what's better? Will we live fully awake, aware, alive, and aligned with something greater than ourselves? Because the world doesn't need more sleepwalkers. It needs more visionaries, more truth tellers, more brave souls who refuse to be quiet in the face of silence. You are not too small, and it is not too late. The time to wake up and to wake others is now. Let your life be the alarm. Let your voice shake the stillness. Let your actions echo through the hearts of those still asleep. And together, step by step, soul by soul, we will wake the world.